Welcome everyone, I'm Steve Cook. I'm here at McGrath Medical this morning and we're doing some consultations. Just wanted to invite you in and see what's going on. We have a patient on hold right now that we'd like to bring you into and kind of follow through the consultation. So let's get started. Okay, this is Tony from San Antonio. Hey Tony, thank you for joining us today and thank you for your time. Tell me a little bit about what your situation is. What are you looking to do? Okay, so you're 35 years old. You've got dark hair and light skin. You've been using finasteride now for 1 year. Great, fantastic. Let me take a look. Let me see what exactly it is that you're asking about. Can you dip your head down for me so I can see the top of your head? Okay, so you got hair loss in the front, then you got hair loss in the back. Okay, so you look like a pretty good candidate. So what bothers you more? Is it the front? Is it the back? So the hair loss in the front bothers you more, but you still really can't stand the hair loss in the back. You've got really good donor hair. Let me take a look at that donor hair. Can you kind of turn around, turn your body? Just, yep. Okay, just keep going around. Cool, right there, perfect. Wow, that looks like some pretty thick donor hair, and usually these consultations are based around getting patients on the finasteride to strengthen their hair. You've been on that medicine for a year, so that really qualifies you as pretty much an optimal patient. Do you have any health issues? Okay, no health issues. You're on the finasteride, strong donor hair. What questions can I answer for you? So you'd like to know whether you should be looking at FUE or FUT. Great. So Dr. McGrath does both FUE and FUT and does them very well. He does them about 50-50. It's really not a matter of which one works better for you. Since you're in your 30s, you're on finasteride, you've got really strong donor hair, you know, you're pretty much good to go. Now, what I like to do on these consultations is I like to point out the pros and the cons. I've already talked about the pros. Your age, the finasteride, the strength of your donor hair. The thing you got working against you is that you have dark hair and light skin and you have two zones. You have two zones that need transplantation. You have the front and a decent amount, and you have the crown and a decent amount. So what that does from an ethical standpoint, from a board certified standpoint, ABHRS, is you're really not a good candidate today for FUE if you want to try to move the most amount of hair in one procedure to get a fully dense packed frontal zone and then work into the crown. So you're probably looking at, for FUE, 2,500 grafts, which is what you're going to need for that frontal zone. And then we're going to have to do a second procedure with FUE to put about 2,000 grafts in the crown. If you want to try to look at FUT, of course you're going to have that linear scar, but you'd probably be able to get, and this is just a generic number, 3,000 grafts. Now you've got strong donor hair. All day long, Dr. McGrath and his team can get 3,300 grafts, 3,500 grafts, but we want to always err on the side of caution. So you're looking at 3,000 grafts because we're on a FaceTime right now. That's for FUT, or 2,500 grafts for FUE. So what questions about those two? Are you considering both? Have you researched either or both? So you kind of have your heart set on FUE. Okay, that's not a problem. So what we really need to talk about is realistic expectations. That's a very big part of this decision. So Dr. McGrath will charge you $6 a graft for FUE, 2,500 grafts in that frontal zone. He does have a special incentive for patients that come in from out of town where he'll take off 50 cents a graft for your travel. You're going to need 2 nights in a hotel. So we want to have you in town the night before so you're rested. You start early with FUE. It takes time. It's more labor intensive. And then you go back to the hotel and come in the next morning for a nice hair wash and to clean up and make sure everything looks perfect with more photography. So that's how Dr. McGrath's clinic handles FUE. I love the idea. I love that the patient doesn't have any stress in the morning, and it doesn't matter whether it's as close as San Antonio or people fly in from all over the country and before the virus, even outside the country. So that's something that they manage very well, meaning the staff. Okay, so you've been quoted from another clinic, 1,800 grafts FUE in the frontal zone and 1,200 grafts in the crown. Okay, so, and it's also a much lower price. So this is going to make for a good video today. So here we need to talk about a few things, okay? I've been doing this a long time. I am not a doctor, and everything has to be, of course, reviewed by the doctor to get exact numbers. But we're talking worst case scenario. We're always planning for the worst, hoping for the best. If you look at any of the top clinics in the country, if you look at the top clinic in Vancouver, Canada, partners of ours or doctors I endorse are in LA, San Francisco, Long Island, Connecticut, Miami. They all use microscopes. Microscopes are needed on someone like yourself. Well, they're needed on all patients, but someone like yourself specifically with dark hair and light skin, they need to put about 400 to 500 grafts right in the frontal zone, right in the front hairline to make it look natural. In order to do that and cover that frontal half of that head, you're going to need 2,500 grafts. Now, the FUE procedure, again, if we do it right, and that means extract the grafts properly in the back of the head, we don't want to do or even come close to what's called over-harvesting. The reason why you're choosing FUE is you don't want to have any visible scarring, meaning even though you're going to have thousands of tiny polka dots, it's not as easy to see as it is in that line with the FUT, and that's why a lot of patients choose the FUE. But we have to be realistic. I know there's many places online that are showing, overseas 5,000 grafts. They're throwing out ballpark numbers where they're actually throwing out best case scenario numbers. Other doctors and other clinics that are more salesy are going to always look at the higher number and then get whatever they can get. That's not good for you. So the doctors on this level, they want to take care of the patient. They want to make sure the patient is treated properly. They want to take as good a care of the donor zone as they do with the recipient area. That's why FUE is what it is, meaning that's why FUE is normally used on patients with very strong donor hair that have very little loss. In your case, no offense to you, you have loss in the front, you have loss in the crown. You have to choose one or the other, but for someone to tell you that you're going to do 3,000 grafts of FUE, that's a red flag. The doctors that I align myself with, of course Dr. McGrath included, are always going to err on the side of caution. So it's a red flag that a number of 3,000 grafts is thrown out to you. And then you also want to look at the fact that 1,800 grafts in the frontal zone with your type of loss, you have a decent amount of loss. It's a little bit like peeing in the ocean. It's definitely going to set you up for a second procedure. 1,200 grafts in the crown is even worse because it has to be done in a circular pattern. And when that pattern is done properly, if it is done properly, it's going to look less dense than the front, just the way the hair lies and the hair shingles. It all has to be done using angle and direction in a three-dimensional space. So doctors out there that do this part-time, doctors out there that do this for extra money, plastic surgeons, cosmetic clinics, med spas. This is conversations that I've had time and time again about machine companies selling an FUE machine and letting everybody out there know that this is like buying tires for your car. It's simply not. It's not a commodity. So what you have to be careful when the pricing is that low. Now let's take a look at the math. I was doing the numbers on you. So you told me that you were quoted a price of about $8,500 for 3,000 grafts. That's $2.83 a graft. It's pretty low. Well, that's great for you if it's the quality, and we have to compare apples to apples. A lot of these doctors that do this part-time, friends of mine call them Kmart doctors for hair transplants, they hire technicians that are flown in from the machine companies that actually sell them the machines. The doctor tells the machine company, I'm not going to pay you $135,000 for a machine when I have no nurses that know how to do this. Don't worry, doc. I got just the nurses that'll come in and take care of that for you. So those nurses are going to charge $1 a graft. That's what they get paid. And they're not coming in for less than $3,000. That's where they got that number from. So they're walking out of that clinic that day with $3,000. The balance of what that clinic is getting is $5,490. And they don't know how to do hair transplants. That doctor doesn't know what he's doing. Think about this. Think about a machine company is in business to sell machines. And there's not a lot of hair transplant doctors in the country. I mean, there's a lot more than there used to be, but there's not a lot of doctors on the elite level that are this booked out and they're doing this kind of work. And they have excellent staffs. That staff, those nurses do excellent work. They're dissecting tissues under microscope and they're able to do the work the doctor needs them to do. It's just a team effort. That's not going on in these part-time hair companies. That's the reason for your lower prices. So we want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples, but I don't know everyone. I don't know every doctor. Maybe a doctor's got great staff that wants to work for less. Maybe the doctor doesn't need to pay his rent or owns the building. I'm not really sure. So what you need to do is you need to go to that doctor's website and you need to ask him if it's not there. Show me 10 videos of hair comb throughs. I want to see the hairline. I want to see your work, doctor. I want to see the work that you did and your staff that placed those grafts, the sites that you created. And let me ask you a question. Are you the one making those sites? Are your nurses cutting my tissue, that dark hair, underneath microscopes? If you don't mind my asking, can I see those microscopes? Can I see 4 or 5 before and after photos of patients that have my type hair? Can I speak to a few of your patients? I mean, there's a lot of questions you can ask. I don't want to go down the black hole, which I kind of already am with you, of talking about, you know, the pay-per-click marketing campaign of hair transplants online and different keywords that are just based on low price. But a red flag in your case would be a very low price. $2.83 is super cheap for any graft anywhere in the country. Definitely not happening with a doctor on the elite level. And then with FUE, just throwing a ballpark of 3,000 grafts out there, that's a red flag. So we want to be very careful with that. Now, as you know from watching other videos with myself, whether it's with David DeMuzio and Hair Loss Hope, my channel, Dr. McGrath's YouTube videos, I would never want to mention any names, any clinics, any doctors. I have not a bad word to say about anybody. If I can see the quality work being done that's on the same level as these elite doctors that I align myself with, I'm more than happy to add them to the list. And the way maybe all of us can look at it is, if prices are that good, at that cheap, then everybody's prices come down. People will be able to afford more hair transplants, and I'm happy because more bald guys walking around and women that are candidates can get hair transplants. But so far that hasn't worked out, so be very careful. You know, when we're talking about something that seems too good to be true, I'll tell you another story which is kind of funny. In the back in the day, the stockbrokers that were out there selling stocks made pretty big commissions. And I was very skeptical of that. I'm trying to figure out how, if my stockbroker, which I've never had one, is going to sell my stock and he's going to make money, is there some sort of a conflict of interest? So I heard this from a friend of mine that said, let's see, I sold some stock today and I sold for one of my top clients. Let's see, I made money, the firm made money, 2 out of 3 isn't bad. So how that correlates to what we're talking about today is, who has your best interests in mind? To all those viewers out there that are watching, you need to talk to those clinics that are going to explain to you what you need to know, maybe not what you want to hear. Everybody wants to hear I do $3 grafts. I can get a graft of FUE for $3. It's all cut under microscopes. The nurses have 5 years experience placing tissue. The doctor's got 20 years experience as a surgeon and a hair transplant surgeon, and has hundreds of before and after videos and photos that people that look just like me. That's what we all want to hear, but that's not necessarily what you're going to find. So buyer beware. Be very careful. I promise you that I will add those doctors to my list of elite doctors if they can do the quality work. But what I see and what you're talking about in regards to graft count, the type of procedure, and the price is just not adding up. But let me know if I can help you, and have a great day.